5,000 years ago, Erebos, the ultimate evil, nearly wiped out humanity. 4 heroes stood their ground, but only one walked away. Kyle, the last human hero, used his comrade's sacrifice to crush the darkness, only to be damned to oblivion. History got twisted, and now the world worships Luna as the one who slayed Erebos. Reborn into the modern era, Kyle finds his name scrubbed from the books. Cut to Dylan Royal School, where a professor was lecturing the class, claiming they are living in the golden age of heroes. Right now, it has been 5,000 years since the first hero emerged in this world. The lower world has evolved since then. Dylan Royal School, for instance, was chosen to host the Lumina entrance exam. The teacher insisted he had zero doubts that every student sitting before him had the raw potential to become a legend. He was hyping it up until he spotted a kid snoozing in the back. "Pay attention, kid," he called out a student named Leo, roasting him for sleeping when he should know the course material cold. Such vital info being dropped, and this guy is catching Z's. So, he threw a curveball at Leo. "Do you happen to know how heroes proved their worth 5,000 years ago?" Leo stood up slowly, shrugging. "Well, if you had the clout, the rituals didn't really matter. Meet Leo, 15 years old." The teacher shut him down immediately, saying that was dead wrong. "Anyone want to give the real answer?" The student next to Leo shot his hand up. In ancient times, heroes were recognized by the gods themselves. Only sacred rituals selected the true heroes, the first being the blood ritual. "Excellent," the teacher beamed. "Spot on, just as expected from him. Julian, the kingdom's greatest genius mage." His name was Julian Trayton, and the teacher couldn't stop glazing him. Julian smirked at Leo, but Leo couldn't care less. He thought finding gods back then was a piece of cake. "The ritual is useless," he mused. It was explained that a miracle was granted to the lower world, to honor the legends who fought Erebos, the heroic record. Leo couldn't figure out why he was the only one missing from that record. Turns out, this kid Leo is the reincarnation of the great hero Kyle, who, as we can see, has been completely erased by time. Suddenly, the class got distracted by something huge. Outside, VIPs were arriving, including a famous heroine. A school-wide message pinged the students, ordering everyone to the auditorium for a mandatory assembly. The Serdinger clan was in the house. Julian sneered. "Hey Leo, gonna try to impress the Serdingers? Why would they even look at you?" Leo said nope, standing up to head home. Unlike them, he had zero interest in that circus. Julian got ticked off, claiming he didn't care either. Later, Leo was training. A sword lay on the ground, but he was swinging something that looked like a stick. Leo thought his grind was solid, but his current physique was struggling to keep up. It was pathetic compared to his past life. Suddenly, a voice asked what he was thinking about. A woman lunged at him with a real blade, not wood. Leo barely blocked it, shouting, "You're ambushing me now?" The woman smirked, saying it had been a while since they sparred, and that mediocre talent wouldn't cut it for Luminia. She called this his final test, then charged again with savage ferocity, catching him off guard. She taunted, "Are you ever going to actually get stronger?" Leo had to backpedal fast or risk getting sliced. He was already gassed. Leo quipped, "Not showing much motherly love, are you?" His mom shot back, "You say that, but you're blocking everything." She moved faster this time, realizing she might be going a little too hard. She wondered if he could dodge. Leo barely made it, losing a lock of hair, but he seized the opening. He swept her legs and pinned her down, winning the duel. "You okay, Mom?" he panted. Leo's mother wondered just how far this kid had pushed his limits. She stood up, dusted herself off, and asked if he was dead serious about Luminia. She explained this was the big leagues. Huminia, the Human Hero Academy, the absolute peak of the 4 great racial institutions in the heroic registry. To Leo, this wasn't just school. It was the key to unlocking his lost history. When asked if he was in, zero hesitation. Absolutely. Then his mom drops a bomb. The Serdingers? They just swung by the Royal Dylan School. And guess where they're crashing? Right here, at the mansion. Leo's blindsided, but his mom wasn't done yet. She had a plan. Since Willie is an old friend, why not cash in a favor? Maybe get him to teach Leo the legendary Serdinger aura. That's a guaranteed golden ticket into Huminia. Leo smirked internally. Serdinger aura, huh? He sighed. He didn't need shortcuts for next year, he was getting in now. Cut to the driveway. A girl steps out of a fancy carriage, fuming. Why is Uncle so obsessed with this place? She thought. We're Serdingers. We could buy a whole hotel, not crash at some random estate. Meet Celia Serdinger, 15 years old, just like Leo, and completely laser-focused on acing the Huminia entrance exams. Why waste time with this no-name family? Her train of thought derailed when a man stepped up beside her. "Aren't you curious about this Leo kid?" he teased. "He's the only person who ever told the Serdinger clan he wasn't interested." That's Willie Serdinger, the clan's vice patriarch. Big deal. Celia wasn't impressed. The guy can't even manifest an aura yet, she scoffed. How impressive can he be? Willie just chuckled. I wouldn't be so sure about that. Inside, the welcome wagon is rolled out. Willie bows. An honor to see you again, Lady Raina. Leo's parents stand tall. Raina Plove and her husband, the lord of the house, presiding as matriarch and patriarch. Willie nudges his niece. Celia? She steps forward, chin up. I am Celia Serdinger, known as the Sword Princess. Thank you for hosting us for the week. Raina doesn't wait. She extends a hand immediately. A pleasure. Celia blinks. She took the initiative before the men? She pauses, analyzing Raina's features. Black hair, red eyes. Wait, are we related? Willie snaps his fingers. Oh, right. Totally slipped my mind. Raina is your aunt. Cut to tea time. Servants bustle around while the adults chat. They mention the chaos at the royal school visit. The students were losing their minds, Willie recounts. But your boy, Leo? Stone cold. Wasn't scared, wasn't impressed, not even worried, he adds. Raina smirks. Must have been a massive blow to that famous Serdinger ego, huh? She apologizes, though her tone is light. Sorry if he came off rude. He didn't mean it. He just doesn't care about much. Willie leans in. So, what is he exactly? Raina hesitates, searching for the right words. While the kids spar outside, Raina finally answers. He's talented, unbelievably so. Willie's expression hardens. Cut the small talk. Do you actually think he's worthy of inheriting the Serdinger flames? I'm not saying this because I'm his mother, she states firmly. I'm saying it because it's true. Willie grins. Well, now you've got my attention. But I'm still going to test the kid myself. Outside, the training session wraps up. Celia is winded, looking rattled. Leo barely broke a sweat, smiling. Later, he sits in lotus position, channeling his energy, when snap, shock hits him. He felt it. Finally, the power level he'd been chasing. He had built the vessel. He realized why he hadn't unlocked his aura yet. The second you accept aura, your body locks in. You lose the chance to stockpile raw mana and soul energy. In his past life, he rushed it. He missed out on that massive stat boost. That mistake caused a disaster he couldn't stop. Not this time. Hey, Celia's voice snaps him out of it. They lock eyes. You've got decent control over the basics, she admits, acting superior. I suppose I could mentor you, teach you some real swordplay. Interested? Leo stares blankly. Sorry, who are you again? She bristles. I am Celia Serdinger. The world calls me the Sword Princess. Leo stands up, dusting off his pants. Oh, cool story. Thanks for the offer, but I'm good. Not really looking for a tutor. Her eyes narrow. You think you're stronger than me? Leo shrugs. In a death match? Yeah, I'd probably win. Even without aura. He pauses. But a fair duel with rules? That might be different. Celia glances at a practice sword nearby. She grabs the blade. Fine, you're so confident? Prove it. He thinks he can just learn our aura and surpass me, she thinks. Time for a reality check. If I win, she declares, you become my personal servant for my entire stay. Leo tilts his head. And if I win? Celia scoffed, claiming the roles would be flipped. She'd be the one making him play maid. Leo just gripped his wooden training sword, cool as ice, and asked, we good to start? Boom. He launched himself like a rocket. Caught off guard, she barely managed to throw up a block. The impact was heavy, but she shrugged it off as insufficient. Then she locked eyes with him. Leo's gaze was literally swimming in bloodlust. He started suffocating her with a barrage of attacks. Her mind raced. What kind of raw power is this? This kid is a freak of nature. Forced into a corner, she knew one slip-up meant lights out. But Leo wasn't even letting her catch a breath. Realizing she couldn't parry the next strike, she braced herself. Smack. As the blow connected, Leo smirked. Oh? You cloaked yourself in aura armor? Thought this was supposed to be a fair fight? Celia stammered, claiming it was just a reflex, that she actually had instinctively shielded her body with an aura barrier. Leo didn't care. Whatever. I'm taking the dub regardless. Now she's ticked off. Do you even hear yourself? You don't even know the gap between an aura user and a regular nobody. Leo shrugged. Guess we'll find out. He unclipped his magical weighted bracelets and let them drop. For the anime fans out there, we're talking full-on Rock Lee vibes. Boom. The ground cracked. He cracked a subtle smile. Suddenly weightless, he turned into a blur, battering her aura armor like it was made of wet tissue paper. Celia, clutching her shattered sword and trembling under the pressure, could only scream internally, what the hell is this guy? Meanwhile, Raina and Willie were strolling nearby. Oh, where's Leo? She asked, spotting him. She signaled him to come meet their VIP guest. Leo stepped up, introducing himself politely as Leopold. Willie waved it off. Yeah, you probably figured it out, but I'm Willie Serdinger, your uncle. They shook hands, and Raina chimed in. By the way, Seen Celia anywhere? Leo just glanced over his shoulder. Cut to Celia being hauled off on a stretcher, looking wrecked, while the staff panicked over her condition. Willie walked over, assessing the damage. What went down here? After getting the report, his mind reeled. Did this kid actually clap her without using a single drop of aura? He turned to Leo. Taking down Celia? That's no small feat. But Leo shrugged. She underestimated me. Willie, knowing Celia's gambling addiction, sighed. All right, what kind of bet did she make this time? Leo didn't miss a beat. Loser plays servant. So, looks like she's mine for the next week. No. Willie's tone shifted. Keeping your word is crucial, sure, but she's a daughter of House Serdinger. We can't have her acting as a maid. He offered a consolation prize to buy out the contract, but Leo shut it down cold, saying, this is her punishment for losing. She needs to own her mistakes, right? Willie narrowed his eyes. Even if the trade-off is me teaching you the secret Serdinger aura technique? Leo scoffed. A technique taught just to save face, solely to keep your niece from being humbled? That kind of power is worthless to me. Willie looked visibly irritated. Let me get this straight. You're saying you're going to make a direct Serdinger heir, your personal maid, and you're calling our aura technique trash. That about sum it up? Leo didn't blink. Spot on. Willie leaned in. Don't you think you're playing with fire here, kid? No disrespect intended, Leo replied smoothly. If you offered the training as a reward for beating her, I'd take it in a heartbeat, but taking it just to cover up her embarrassment? That's just refusing to accept reality. He paused. And honestly, it sounds like you think she only lost because she slipped up. Leo stepped closer. Dead wrong. Even if she went all out from the start, the result would be exactly the same. Willie studied him. He turned it down based on principle. This kid was built different. If only the Serdinger kids had that kind of spine. He snapped his fingers at the guards. Send Celia to the servant quarters. The room went silent. Everyone was shook. Willie broke the tension, adding that since they were off the clock, Leo could drop the formalities and just call him Uncle. Leo nodded. You got it, Uncle. Later, they parted ways. Willie turned to his sister, Raina. You asked me to teach the kid aura before, right? Well, I might just convince him to learn something even better. The Phoenix breath. Later, Leo walked into his room to find Celia standing there, fully decked out in a maid outfit. Reporting for duty for the next week, she grumbled. Leo looked her up and down. Not gonna lie, the fit actually suits you. Who knew you could pull off the servant aesthetic? Celia crossed her arms. I know I'm gorgeous, but you don't have to be a creep about it. Leo raised his hands. My bad. Wasn't trying to roast you. I just had a buddy back in the day who was obsessed with aesthetics, even if he was kind of annoying about it. He drifted into a memory, quoting his old friend. The beauty of eternity is unmatched. If peace ever finds its way back to this world, my life's mission? Spreading beauty to every corner of the earth. The protagonist figures his only crime was just being too real for this world. Flashback to his buddy trying to spit game at two girls, one aggressive, but Rishinas, total baddie, and Luna, goddess tier. The guy actually told them that for the sake of high art, they should pose for him in their birthday suits. Yeah, the response was a savage beatdown, but snap back to, outside of Leo's daydream, Celia is grilling him about his reading material. Leo holds up the book, The Great Hero of the Beginning. A classic. Celia rolls her eyes. Wow, that bedtime story I read when I was 5 years old? She stares at him like he's an alien. She creeps over to his bookshelf and notices. He's actually obsessed. You really dig this fanfic stuff, huh? She throws shade, saying a real researcher shouldn't waste time comparing himself to myths. Leo shrugs it off. It's just a collection. But Celia insists. It's worth studying the OG party members. Then she spots something weird. Why is the shelf stacked with books about Kyle? Leo drops some lore. Out of all the legendary feats the heroes pulled off, there were a ton that couldn't be pinned to a specific person. So, historians just dumped all those achievements onto Kyle's stats. Celia scoffs. Please, that Kyle guy was definitely a fraud, just chasing clout, stealing glory from the actual heroes. Leo freezes. Kyle? Celia nods. Duh, everybody knows that. Even I know he's trash. Leo stands there in silence, screaming internally. Oh, so that's my legacy? The world thinks I'm a scammer. He shakes it off and stands up. Grab a coffee, then we hit the gym? Celia asks if he's serious about training, but inside, she's scheming. Bet. I'm gonna expose the secret behind his freakish strength. Leo warns her. Try to keep up, or you'll regret it. She takes that personally. Cut to later. She literally can't stand up. Leo lectures her while she gasps for air. When your stamina tanks, you hit your limit. Reflexes lag, and you leave massive openings in your defense. You let your guard down, you get wrecked. Celia snaps back. Is destroying your own body supposed to be training? You seriously do this grind every single day? Leo sighs. This generation is soft. He thinks to himself that while modern aura tech has leveled up, people got lazy with their base stats. Aura multiplies your physical power, but 0 times 1000 is still 0. Celia, shaking with rage, raises her voice. Excuse me? Did you just call me weak? Leo thinks. If you buff the body, the aura follows. Suddenly, Celia jumps up and screams, "Don't sleep on me, you white-haired jerk." She lunges, but Leo drops her with a single tap. She hits the floor again, legs wobbling like a baby deer. Leo walks over. While she's fuming and smirks. Tough, right? He tosses her a magic bracelet. She catches it, and her arm immediately drops like a stone. Wear that starting tomorrow. During training, later outside, Celia is getting absolutely destroyed again. Weiss watches from the shadows, thinking she needs this reality check. Before hitting Luminia Academy, she needs to check her ego at the door. Weiss shifts his gaze to Leo, who stands there like an unmovable statue. Weiss approaches smoothly. I was thinking, maybe I could teach you the breath of the phoenix. Thoughts? Leo's interest peaks instantly. He knows the breath of the phoenix is the holy grail of the Zerdinger bloodline. He recalls the rule, only the chosen elites, acknowledged by the family, get to learn it. Celia interrupts. No way, Leo. Gets approved for that. Weiss grins. That's why there's a condition. He has to pass the Lumenia entrance exam. Celia panics. That's insane. The exam is brutal. For a guy who can't even use aura, it's practically a death sentence. Leo just smiles. True, I have 0 combat experience. Lie detector determined that was a lie he remembers. Lifetimes of war. He figures the logic holds up for this life, though. Weiss presses him. So? Leo asks. What about my parents? Weiss nods. Considering they're leaving, it's handled. Leo replies. Deal. I'm in. Weiss looks proud. He knew the kid was gunning to take that exam this year anyway. Leo turns to Celia. All right, show's over. Rest up. 1 week later, exam day. The crowd is shook, seeing Celia actually show up. She's instantly the main character of the event. She glances at Leo. So, young master, shaking in your boots? He deadpans. Not really. But what's with that attitude? Ella is practically shaking in her boots until a distraction finally hits. Turns out it's Julian, and the guy looks absolutely shook seeing Leo standing right there. Julian immediately presses him, asking what a guy with 0 aura is doing here, and throws shade asking how Celia even got in. But they hit him with the silent treatment. Julian tries to flex again, reintroducing himself as Julian Traden, claiming they met at school earlier. Everyone knows him as the grand magic genius, but Celia hits him with a cold "I don't recall" and grabs Leo by the hand. She literally leaves him on read in real life. But then, another voice calls out to Celia, and this time, she actually looks caught off guard. Enter the heavy hitters, Abad Llewellyn and Chelsea Llewellyn. Abad smirks, noting that it has been quite a long time. Leo leans in, whispering, asking who these people are. Celia explains they're the Llewellyn siblings, carrying the same bloodline as the legendary heroes of the Rudran Empire. But judging by Celia's face, she has major beef with them. She declares that if they cross paths, losing isn't an option. The Zerdinger clan refuses to ever bow down to the Llewellyn family. Leo awkwardly reminds her, I'm from the Plav family. Meanwhile, the siblings are just standing there, looking like supermodels with a superiority complex. Celia admits it has been a while. That's when Abad locks eyes on Leo and asks, and who is this rando next to you? Celia claps back, introducing him formally as Leo of House Plav, a noble family from the kingdom of Delran. Abad laughs it off, calling him small fry. Leo frowns at the disrespect, but Abad just pivots back to his sister. He guarantees that first place is already in the bag for them. Celia mutters under her breath about how arrogant these guys are, and she vows to personally end their entire career. Suddenly, the main event arrives. The organizer steps onto the scene, announcing everyone is present. It's Albi Zeron, a professor from Lumenia Academy. Celia is visibly starstruck since she knows every big name in the game. But Leo, living under a rock, asks, who's that? Celia looks at him like he's crazy. Are you serious right now? Albi is a registered hero in the books. Leo thinks, oh, so that's what they call heroes in this era. He scans Albi closer and spots some seriously glitchy mana in the guy's left eye. Albi starts breaking down the exam rules. He mentions one-on-one duels and monster subjugation, standard turn-based stuff. But then Albi sighs, calls that a total snooze fest, and literally incinerates the syllabus paper in his hand. He stares down the students, grabs a grimoire, and activates the hero's registry. Albi's reality marble opens the prologue chapter, The Wild Forest. Suddenly, magic floods the arena, a massive circle rewriting reality and transforming everything into Albi's world. While the students are losing their minds, Albie declares he hates inefficiency, so he's combining every test into one massive battle royale. Leo watches intensely, remembering his master's lesson about the registry. It's not just a book, it holds actual value, raw power. It manifests the hero's mental world and contains the experiences of that hero's past. Plus, entering that world means you can inherit the power of a previous legend, Leo realizes. So, this is a hero training simulation? He squints as a blinding light consumes them. Suddenly, all the students are standing in the wild forest, the hero's world. Albie's voice booms from outside. Objective is simple: survive, team up, take each other out, do whatever it takes to stay alive, and if you want to rage quit, just smash the orb in your hand to teleport out. The challenge begins. Leo scans the terrain, this dense forest, and thinks, nothing has changed. He remembers this place used to be the sanctuary of the elves, back before the witch queen Silatina corrupted the land. Suddenly, a student screams this is too much and smashes his orb, but others mock him, calling it just an illusion. Pathetic, they laugh. Leo knows they are dead wrong. This world is built from Albie's memories. Everything happening here is the real deal, and the deadly things here, they can absolutely kill you in real life. Out of nowhere, a spear nearly takes Leo's head off. It was thrown by someone closing in fast. Not a monster. Well, technically an enemy now. It's Chelsea Llewellyn. She smirks, saying it'll be great to eliminate a Zerdinger lackey. Leo sighs. Again with this? I am a Plov. But Chelsea doesn't care. She thinks he's Celia's sidekick. She summons a wind scythe. Leo notes that spell didn't exist back in the day, but the fundamentals remain the same. He draws his blade. Chelsea gives a condescending smile, asking if he's still feeling relaxed. Then, she spins her scythe and launches a high-speed strike at Leo, but he sidesteps it like it was in slow motion. Chelsea's eyes go wide. He blocked it that easily? I didn't even see his aura flare up. Is his stealth that high? Leo sighs, commenting the attack was too basic. Isn't it easier if we team up? Survivor gets the most points. As a mage, don't you need to pass at least one round? But Chelsea just laughs and replies, sadly for you. This battle mage is getting on my last nerve. She gets all up in his face, asking if her attack felt basic. Leo just claps back. Honestly, for wind magic, that was way too linear. With the kind of juice you're packing, yeah, that was pretty weak sauce. Chelsea sees red. The audacity. You think you can school me on magic? I'm a direct descendant of the Llewellyn bloodline. She grips her staff, promising to flatten him with that so-called simple power. Boom, she unleashes a barrage of wind blasts. But blink and you miss it. Leo's gone. Vanished. She can't even track a whisper of his mana signature. Out of nowhere, he lands a direct hit. Before her scream even fades, we see her scythe and staff go flying through the air. She drops to her knees, defeated. Leo runs back the offer. So, how about we team up? Meanwhile, the crowd outside is glued to the screens. And when the feed finally goes live, it's Chelsea, tied tight to a pole, while Leo chills, lighting a campfire with a smirk plastered on his face. Night falls, pitch black, and that fire is roaring now. The heat wakes Chelsea up, and the second reality hits her. She goes into full-blown panic mode. Leo asks her one more time, you gonna work with me or not? Chelsea snaps back, never. She doesn't need anyone but her brother. She tries to conjure a wind blade, but nothing happens. Blocked. Leo explains he slapped a magic restriction seal on her. But here's the kicker. He doubts it'll hold for long because her mana reserves are insane. Chelsea claims she can break free, without even using magic. Leo just tilts his head. You really think I'm gonna let you focus enough to do that? He loosens the ropes, making her slump against the pole, inches from the flames. Her dress starts to catch fire. Chelsea freaks out, and finally caves. I'll do it. But Leo's not done. He demands she swear it on her mother's name, on her entire bloodline. Chelsea swears on her family's honor to join him. The moment those ropes drop, she collapses. But Leo catches her right in his lap. Pleasure to meet you, he says smooth as silk, addressing her formally as a Llewellyn mage. Back at Luminia, they're watching the test play out. The professor's board thinks everyone is following the same predictable script, choosing to brawl with each other. To him, a bunch of idiots. Only two candidates actually focused on the objective, Celia Serdinger and Abad Llewellyn. But then, he notices another duo has linked up. Watching them take down a monster, the professor squints. Is that Leo? At first glance, Leo doesn't look like much. But the fact he manipulated Chelsea into teaming up, that proves he's got an ace up his sleeve. He lacks the raw power and elegance of Celia or Abad, sure, but Albic? He's officially intrigued by this kid. Back on the field, Chelsea snipes another creature with a sharp wind arrow. While Leo slices another one's throat wide open, Chelsea admits it to herself having a knight tanking in the front line. Actually pretty chill. She asks Leo what kind of aura he's channeling, since she hasn't picked up on it yet. Leo shrugs. He doesn't know any aura techniques. Chelsea is shook, but Leo drops some wisdom. Solid fundamentals beat aura any day. Then he quizzes her. Does she even know the basics of her own wind magic? She uses a detection spell, then blasts whatever is in front of her with wind, obliterating a poor goblin instantly. Chelsea scoffs. He's being way too cocky, lecturing a Liguelin on wind magic. Leo holds up a hand. Don't get it twisted. You're powerful, no doubt about that, but you're using it wrong. That definitely ticks her off. Suddenly, Leo freezes. He senses something off. Hold up. He creeps forward, and they spot bodies scattered on the ground. Chelsea grimaces. They look like dried up mummies. Leo nods darkly. He's seen victims like this before. This is it. The true test conditions are starting now. Whoosh, something nearly takes their heads off. Leo dodges, pulling Chelsea to safety. Two guys step out. Damn, almost had him. One says, we gotta take out the guy first. One's a total nobody named Julian. He charges in with an axe wielder. Bad move. Leo flips the switch, instincts take over, and he drops the axe guy in a heartbeat. But it's not just a duo. A whole squad is surrounding them. Leo stays cool, signaling Chelsea, watch my six. Chelsea is totally awestruck. The mob rushes them, but Leo, he looks annoyed. Cut to, bodies everywhere, and Julian is the only one left, sprinting for his life. He's panicking. He can't go out like this. It can't end here. He needs to find another squad. Fast. He blurs past Celia. She spots him running and decides to check out the source. When she and Abad roll up on the scene, they find a total massacre. Chelsea locks eyes with her brother, and Abad breathes a sigh of relief to see she's still in one piece. Wait, why are we teaming up? Celia demanded, eyeing the group with major suspicion. Leo shrugged, cool as a cucumber. I just pitched a collab. Celia rolled her eyes. Yeah, right. That girl's stubborn as a mule. She'd never sign off on this. I have my ways of being persuasive. Leo shot back with a smirk. Without missing a beat, he started hauling up the students they'd just wrecked on the battlefield. Chelsea blinked, totally confused. Leo? Why are you rezzing the enemy? Leo dusted off his hands. No point fighting scraps. We're gonna shatter this illusion world, together. That stopped the squad cold. Shatter the world? Leo pointed into the gloom. Check the vibes. This forest is glitching. Look at the bodies, he commanded. Drained dry, like something vacuumed the life right out of them. He paused for dramatic effect. Plus, it's a ghost town. Zero mobs spawning. Celia nodded slowly, catching on. You're right. The local monsters are terrified of something. My bet? Leo murmured. A boss-level predator moved in. Abad's eyes went wide. Then Albic's big legend. It must have been taking down whatever nightmare lives here. Boom. Leo felt it instantly, a crushing aura slamming down on the forest. A heavy, suffocating pressure that screamed danger. The air grew thick. Everyone froze, skin crawling as the dread washed over them. Leo smirked grimly, finally showed its face. Meanwhile, Julian was wandering solo, lighting up the darkness like a walking target. He gritted his teeth, muttering a mantra of hate as he marched. Doesn't matter how long it takes. I'm gonna wreck Leo. Then he froze. A withered corpse blocked the path. Julian stumbled back, legs turning to jelly, and hit the dirt hard. Drip, drip. Thick, sticky slime hit his cheek. He looked up straight into the mandibles of a colossal spider, ready to feast. Back in Lumenia, the spectators were glued to the screens. A retired pro tallied the numbers. I count 15, maybe 16 survivors. He took out a bunch. 2, another added. Albic watched the monitors impassively. 500 entered. And technically, they've all wiped. A staffer leaned in, sweating. Sir, we need at least 100 graduates to match the other region's quotas. We're down to 50 active participants right now. Albic didn't blink. If they aren't elite, they fail. Period. Director Callian hired me for a reason, Albic declared. True heroes are forged in the fires of hell, not handed participation trophies. His gaze locked onto Leopold, the kid who'd actually spotted the glitch in the simulation. You figured it out, kid, Albic thought. But are you strong enough to break the world I built? Cut back to the forest. The squad was sprinting through the pitch-black woods, adrenaline pumping. Contact front, Celia shouted. She flared her aura, flooding the clearing with light. And there it was, Julian, half swallowed by the nightmare. Celia gasped. Abad prepped a spell, but Leo shoved him back. Don't, he turned to the victim. Julian, smash the crystal or you're dead. Tap out now. Surrender, Leo roared, desperate. Panic took over. Crack. Julian shattered his gem and vanished, just as the spider clamped down on empty air. Now, Abad unleashed a wind blade, slicing deep into the beast. Massive damage, but useless. The flesh knitted itself back together in seconds. The squad looked terrified. Leo? He just narrowed his eyes. Knew it. The princess spider, the tarantula. Axe guy charged in with a battle cry, but the monster swatted him away like a fly. Wham! I'll roast it in one shot, Celia yelled. She channeled her prominence, firing a blazing sniper shot straight between the monster's eyes. Direct hit, smoke cleared, and the spider screeched, face fully healed, not a scratch left. Impossible, Celia whispered. Abad stepped up, wind swirling around him. Knights are cute, he scoffed. But mages bring the apocalypse. He cast a cyclone, summoning a towering tornado that vacuumed up debris and ripped the spider's legs clean off its body. Brutal. The winds died down. Abad smirked until his jaw dropped. The spider stood there, fully regenerated. Again. And now, it was pissed. It lunged at Abad. Chelsea screamed an incantation, throwing up a barrier just in time. Slash. Abad stumbled back, clutching a bleeding arm. Close call. Without Chelsea's buff, he'd be confetti. I'm good, just a scratch, Abad groaned. The rest of the team was spiraling. What the hell was this thing? Infinite HP? That's cheating. The spider shrieked and charged. Leo stepped forward, voice steady. That's the spawn of Silatina, Queen of Tartarus. He dropped the lore bomb. A relic from the hero army's war in the elf forest. Tartarus? Someone echoed. Leo's mind raced back to Albic's left eye, that specific mana signature he'd sensed earlier. That wasn't human magic, Leo realized. That was the fairy queen's mana. This spider hit the forest like a biological weapon. It wiped out the elves. The survivors begged their queen for salvation, and she gathered every ounce of power to nuke the spider. History says Luna finished the job, but clearly, the history books missed a chapter. The fairy queen's power didn't just vanish. It's sitting in the spider's gut, acting like an infinite battery. The ring of life, Leo realized, eyes lighting up. He turned to the wind mage. Abad, focus up. That spider isn't just a boss. It's the exit key. He was ready to end this, but Celia wasn't letting him fly solo. In a heartbeat, they surged forward, unleashing a chaotic combo on the spider. The beast took hits from every angle, yet Leo spotted the problem immediately. It was healing way too fast. Unless they drained every drop of mana, this fight was going nowhere. Just like that, the arachnid reset to full health. Celia demanded a plan. Leo's strategy? A two-person tag team, right on the front lines. Abad balked immediately. He wanted that MVP glory for himself. Celia, however, wasn't having it. She claimed the spot. Leo cut through the noise, failed to clear the world of Albi, and everyone fails the test. Period. Tension rippled through the squad. Abad pushed back, arguing that even with teamwork, they couldn't one-shot the thing before it stitched itself back together. The rest of the crew had to agree. All eyes shifted to Leo. He stepped up, guaranteeing success. Celia called him out straight up suicidal since he could barely channel his aura. Leo just shrugged it off. He could buy them 5 minutes. Abad pressed him. And if you whiff the attack? Leo cracked a faint smirk, snatching an axe from another guy. Not gonna happen. After all, fire and wind are besties. They make a killer combo. Then, Celia and Abad exchanged a look, but the tarantula wasn't waiting for a handshake. It lunged straight for Leo. Total throwback vibes for Leo. He engaged the behemoth, his axe hacking off legs one by one to run down the clock. The crowd watched in awe, stunned by the sheer skill on display as he pummeled the creature. Leo muttered about how long it had been since he danced with a Tartarus beast. Cue the flashback. A young elf girl sprinting through the forest, desperate to outrun the monster, only to get snagged in a sticky web. Bracing for death, she thought it was game over. Then, a light pierced the darkness. A heroine, locked and loaded. She roared at the beast for daring to defile her homeland, screaming about how it had devoured the queen's right hand. Pure rage fueled her next move. She went nuclear, unleashing max power vitality magic that triggered a massive explosion, leveling the zone. She marveled at Erebus's influence bleeding into reality. That's when Kyle rolled up, checking if the kid was okay. Snap back to reality. Leo, formerly Kyle, was tapped out. He couldn't inflict real damage without blowing his cover and using aura. Suddenly, he shouted to Chelsea, ordering her to use her wind magic to chuck every floating weapon his way. He barely sidestepped a lethal strike from the tarantula. Someone in the back yelled, "You're gonna get wrecked doing that." Leo fired back, "I'll catch 'em all." Chill. When asked for a preference, he barked, "Anything." Chelsea unleashed the wind, and Leo, tracking them solely by sound, identified a sword and a scimitar. He snatched both out of the air, like they were feathers. "Let's dance." He unleashed a flurry of dual-wield strikes. Ambidextrous chaos. He demanded another. Chelsea kept the armory flying his way. Leo cycled through them, testing which steel hurt the beast the most. Chelsea watched, thinking, "We're the same age, right?" Because he fights like a literal martial king. Abad had to admit, this guy was no rookie. Suddenly, slash. Leo took a nasty cut to the face but stayed laser-focused. He figured if he couldn't stop this overgrown bug, in this life, his buddies in the afterlife would never let him live it down. Crack. Another weapon shattered against the spider's hide. Next, he yelled. That was the last one, Chelsea cried. Leo panicked. A heads up would have been nice, but Celia, cut in. Relax. I've got the finisher loaded and ready. Celia blasted her inferno straight into the tarantula. The beast shrieked as it was engulfed in flames. Moments later, the ring of life dropped from its gut. The monster was finally toast, and the prologue of the world of Albi, the savage forest, was cleansed. Celia collapsed, exhaling sharply. Finally, over. It hit her then. Leo actually stalled that nightmare for 5 whole minutes. The guy was insane. Just as she opened her mouth to give him props, Chelsea started shrieking like a superfan. Good job. Amazing job. She was totally starry-eyed. You're like a hero straight out of a comic. She was begging now. I need to learn close combat. Please, be my sensei. Celia just shook her head, muttering, good luck surviving even one session with him. She made it sound like torture. Meanwhile, Leo casually scooped up the ring of life. He checked himself over. Was he even in one piece? Suddenly, a fairy popped out of the ring. No way. Prince Silith. Leo stared. Yo, you remember me? Am I still Kale to you? But Silith just gave him a cryptic smile and dipped back into the ring of life. Looked like the guy actually pulled it off and became the fairy king. All thanks to that loot, Albi snagged the ring. That artifact unlocked the mana eye. Notification confirmed. Trial condition met. Mission accomplished. System said 5 seconds until extraction. But right before the timer hit 0, a figure glitch-stepped in front of Leo. He knew that face. Before Leo could drop a word, reality snapped back. Scene change. Meanwhile, somewhere else, an old timer announced, the Western trial? It's a wrap. That was Director Calliambidian of Lumenia Academy. His secretary looked shook. Already? How? There's still a ton of zones left. She needed stats. How many of Albi's students made the cut? The director smirked. Since Albi was running the show, 40 survived. That's huge. 40 passed? She frowned. Doesn't sound like a lot. The director shook his head. I was betting on 10. She tapped her chin. Betbad and Celia were the first ones out, right? It was a tough call, the director admitted. But Albi actually dropped a personal recommendation. The secretary's jaw hit the floor. Albi? Recommending someone? The director nodded. Some kid I've never heard of. She grabbed the file. I need a name. Flashback time. During the trial, the crowd was simping hard for Celia, and Bad, literally treating it like a fan club meetup. But Albi? He was laser-focused on Leo. He weighed his options and made the call. Leo was the pick. The director pointed out, for a rookie instructor like Albi to hype a student this much, the kid must be a monster. Albi's note was short but heavy. This kid has hero DNA. Cut to, sometime later. A totally different vibe. Leo was living his best life, soaking in a jacuzzi. Ah, this soreness hurt so good. He dunked his head under the hot water, deep in thought. His mind drifted back to that mystery person. He saw right as the trial ended. Suddenly, ping. System message. Reward received. The Fairy King's promise. A bit cheap considering he was a living legend in a past life. But hey, he'd take the consolation prize. A noise broke his focus. What the? The door opened. It was his mom. She cut straight to the chase. Do you know why the Serdinger family disowned me? Leo blinked, totally clueless. Reyna dropped the lore. I tried to save a squad mate and lost the Serdinger flames in the process. She looked him in the eye. Zero regrets. I want you to wield that power now. She smiled. And congrats on getting into Lumenia. Fast forward. We're talking high-tech meets high fantasy. Cyberpunk skyscrapers with magic circles. Leo finally set foot in Lumenia City. A PA voice boomed. Grab your gear before exiting the portal. Leo stared at the skyline. It was breathtaking. This was it, the center of the universe, Lumenia. He could see the academy in the distance. Suddenly, a voice from behind. Been a month, hasn't it? Whis stepped up to dap him up. You here just to say hi? Leo asked. Whis got serious. The Serdinger house has been in a deadlock debate for the last 30 days. You know why? Leo guessed. The consensus on the Phoenix breath? Bingo, Whis confirmed. Your mom, Reyna, she's out. But you're still her son. A legitimate blood heir. Plus, the elders saw your trial footage. They were absolutely floored. Whis handed him a key to a subspace pocket. Open it, Leo. Channeled mana into the key. A glowing lock manifested in midair like a holographic window. Inside, floating, a book. The ultimate guide. Step 1. DNA lock. He needed to drop some blood on the blank page. Leo bit his thumb and pressed it down. Whoosh. Massive amounts of mana surged into the book. Now it's soul-bound to you, Whis explained. Mastering the Serdinger arts isn't going to be a walk in the park, but I know you'll crush it. He grinned. Congrats to the youngest member of House Serdinger. Later, downtown, Leo was navigating the crowded pedestrian zone. Is this the meetup spot? Supposed to link with Celia here. Smack. He slammed right into someone. Books went flying everywhere. Classic anime intro, right? Of course. It was a girl. A girl with glasses frantically gathers her scattered books, stuttering out a shy apology for blindly bumping into him. As Leo steps around the chaos, something on the ground catches his eye. It looks like a student ID belonging to Chloe Muller, a total newbie at Lumina Academy. Later, over at the supply shop, Celia is already grilling him about his timing. They have a mountain of gear to buy uniforms, textbooks, the works. Where on earth has he been? Leo coolly replies he was stuck in a sit-down with his Uncle Weiss. Celia's eyes light up, instantly asking if they finally reached an agreement. Instead of speaking, Leo lets his mana do the talking, igniting a blazing aura of fire magic that swirls violently around him. That's his answer right there. Celia is so shook, she literally drops everything she's holding, staring at him in total disbelief. She stammers that it took her weeks just to nail the basics of that move, wondering if Leo is actually some kind of monster. Fast forward a bit, down at the Lumina harbor, a massive vessel is pulling in. The crowd is gazing up in awe at its size, until a shadow looms behind everyone, making the students jump out of their skins. He introduces himself as Professor Allen, the man in charge of the Rookie Knight Division, announcing they're setting sail for Lumina on that beast of a ship. This guy is Alan Ain, the legendary Glacial Knight, and a top-tier professor at the Academy. Soon, the ships are cutting through the open ocean, while everyone vibes at the onboard banquet. But Leo and Celia are just standing there, keeping to themselves, until a random guy slides up and asks if they, as a couple, have a minute to chat. Celia completely freezes at the word couple. The stranger introduces himself as Carl Thomas, an alchemist from the Moira Kingdom. He claims he's pushing everything from potions to weapons and hands them a business card. Leo thinks this guy is actually pretty interesting and tells him it's a pleasure. He introduces himself as Leo Platt, hailing from the Kingdom of Dylan. Thomas notes he's from the Western region, acting all impressed. But internally, Leo starts wondering if he's the only one sensing that something is off here. Even though the vibe is super chill, there's definitely a weird energy. The supervisor did mention they were giving a warm welcome to everyone who passed the exam. This feels way too easy, but Leo glances over at the professor, lurking in the corner, then at the card in his hand, and decides to let it slide. Suddenly, the ship starts rocking violently, and Leo mutters that it was about time. A massive tentacle bursts out of the ocean and starts hammering the ship, ripping it apart and punching holes in the hull. The crew starts screaming for help, but the professor declares that as Lumenia students and future heroes, they need to handle this mess themselves. Rising up in front of the ship is a colossal beast, looking straight up like a kraken. Leo wastes no time, drawing his blade and signaling Celia to stay sharp. She's already slicing through a tentacle and snaps back at him to worry about himself. The kraken, realizing its limbs are getting chopped, blasts a high-pressure jet of water straight into Celia's face. Leo explains that's just standard behavior, since the beast feels threatened. Suddenly, the kraken snatches up a student with one of its tentacles. Leo and Celia sprint into action, slicing the limb clean off to set the kid free. Meanwhile, Thomas is cowering under a table, absolutely terrified. He mumbles that it makes sense for Celia to be dominating like that since she was top of her class back home. But then he wonders what's the deal with Leo? Who even is this kid? Just then, the tentacle right in front of him freezes solid. Thomas realizes the girl responsible is the same one Leo bumped into earlier, Chloe Muller. She throws up a magic barrier and starts bombarding the Times Kraken with a barrage of ice spells, shouting at Leo to actually defend himself and help the others. Thomas mutters that these overpowered types are all the same, they don't give a damn about anyone caught in the crossfire. Another tentacle gets severed right in front of Thomas's face. This time, it's the Llewellyn siblings stepping up to the plate. Abad rushes the beast, yelling that the competition isn't over yet, admitting that the thrill of the fight feels absolutely insane, while Chelsea shoots Leo a quick, shy smile. Meanwhile, the professor is casually sipping wine, mentioning that the Academy's lake is actually full of creatures, just like this one. He figured a kraken attack was the perfect welcome party for the new recruits. Everything is going exactly according to script. The top-ranked students from every region are throwing down against the beast. You've got Xenia from the east, Celia Serdinger and Battlewell from the west, Chloe Muller from the north, Walden Titan from the south, and Duran Moira from the center. The professor muses that this year's freshmen are actually top tier. But as he takes another sip of wine, he decides the one who impresses him the most, even more than the ranked elites, is that unknown kid. He's watching Leo, who seems to have absolute control, wasting zero energy, almost like he's predicting the Kraken's every move before it happens. With a subtle smirk, the professor thinks he'll have to deal with that kid very soon. Finally, the students dock at Lumina Academy. The squad was absolutely drained after everything they'd been through. Thomas looked totally defeated, admitting he'd already burned through his entire stash of potions. Then the instructor hopped off the boat and dropped a bomb on them. They had to cross that lake, like every single time. Better get used to the grind. Next stop, the grand entrance hall of Lumenia Academy. We got a quick cinematic tour of the grounds, kicking things off at the Electra Center, where the upperclassmen were lurking, checking out the fresh meat and whispering about how this year's batch actually looked interesting. Time for the main event, the entrance ceremony. The professor barked orders, sorting everyone by region. Top scorers from the exams were shoved to the front row. The director was about to make his big entrance. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. He started talking about fresh blood flooding the academy, all desperate to play hero. But he kept it short, sharp, and brutal. If you want to be a legend, you gotta bleed for it. You have to risk absolutely everything. Shatter your limits. And if you can't, then get out of his face, because you don't belong here. He dropped the hammer, basically telling the weaklings to pack their bags and leave right now. Then he casually wondered aloud if he was being too toxic. Someone actually yelled at him from the crowd, and the students realized the longer they stuck around this guy, the more their sanity would tank. Cue the moment of truth. The freshman representative speech. The crowd gasped. Some looked terrified, others straight up salty. The rep was none other than Leo Plot. Leo locked eyes with Albie, the guy who recommended him. Albie just smirked, enjoying the show. Clutching his book, Leo stepped up to the mic. As he opened his mouth, whispers exploded. Who is this kid? Nobody knew him. The faculty looked less than thrilled, but Leo ignored the shade. He addressed the seniors and professors, declaring that they, the new class, were stepping into Lumenia Academy with heads held high. He kept going, though. We're skipping the boring parts. The MC gave a polite nod, thanked him, and then asked the big question. What are your goals as the representative? Leo realized the academy wanted drama. They wanted a show. So, he reintroduced himself. Leo Plot. The seniors relaxed, thinking, okay, kid seems chill. Maybe this year won't be a disaster. Seek. Leo flipped the script instantly. He looked dead at the crowd. You want my spot? Come and take it from me. The vibe in the room tanked. Some groaned. Not this again. But Leo doubled down. I don't care who you are. Come at me. Later that evening, back at the dorms, the RAs gave final instructions. Before lights out, they dropped the schedule. Starting tomorrow, Exploration Week. For the next 7 days, you could crash any class you wanted. No restrictions. It was a free-for-all to figure out your path. By the end of the grind, you had to lock in your top 3 choices. Briefing over, everyone scattered to unpack. Leo's crib was room 302. Right next door at 303, Thomas. Dude was hyping himself up for tomorrow. He wished Leo a good night, but Leo just waved him off and face-planted onto his bed, shoes on, fully dressed, completely dead to the world. In the silence, he asked himself, what do I actually want from this place? An image of a massive stone pillar flashed in his mind. He was chasing astral knowledge, raw, unadulterated power. He needed to carve out his own legend. Being a footnote in history, not an option. Next morning, cafeteria vibes. Thomas was buzzing, eager to grab breakfast with Leo. Leo let him tag along. Suddenly, bam, a fist slammed onto their table. Yo, freshman rep, Leo sighed internally. And so it begins. It was Duran, looking for an explanation for the trash talk. From yesterday, Leo didn't flinch. Guess I really triggered people. If even a total rando is coming over to start beef. Duran turned red. Do you have any idea who I am? I'm the captain of the Central Region. Leo and Thomas just kept chewing, ignoring him completely. Duran, visibly ticked off, the guy started channeling raw power, and Thomas realized they were in major trouble. Boom, Duran launched a vicious kick, sending the table and the lunch flying. But Leo? He moved like a blur, snatching every fry and burger out of midair like a ninja. He plated the food back on Thomas's tray, perfectly stacked, zero mess. Leo glared. Watch it, wasting food is a sin. Duran, seeing red, vowed to knock him off his high horse right then and there. Suddenly, a heavy hand clamped onto their shoulders. It was Professor Allen, pulling them into a buddy-buddy chokehold. Well, isn't this interesting? The Central Region captain and the rookie rep facing off? Duran froze, sweating bullets. When did this guy even get here? Allen smirked. Throwing hands on day 1 at Lumenia? I like the hustle. Shows you're ready for the nightmare awaiting you. Later, at the Knights department, Allen stood before the students. One kid piped up, voice shaky. Sir? Why are we here? Class is starting like, right now. Celia ignored the chatter, scanning the crowd. Where the heck is Leo? Just then, Leo and Duran stumbled in. Duran looked absolutely wrecked, panting hard, while Leo barely broke a sweat. Celia rushed over, confused. What happened? She asked. Duran seethed in silent humiliation, totally gassed. Leo just shrugged, cool as ice. Don't worry about it. No details needed. He brushed it off. Once the head count was full, Professor Allen clapped his hands. All right, listen up. Class is in session. Name's Allen. I own you rookies in the Knights class now, so get used to this face. Duran was laser focused on Leo, eyes burning with hate, but Leo ignored him completely. Thomas thought, did they seriously start a war? On the very first day, Allen launched into the lecture. Mana gives us 3 types of power: magic energy, soul energy, and aura. Out of these, aura is the beast to tame. Who can tell me why? Celia didn't hesitate. Because aura loses the fluidity of mana during the conversion process. It becomes rigid. Bingo. Allen pointed at her. Spot on. While soul and magic energy, they utilize mana in its raw, natural flow. The aura just absorbs it completely. Then, the professor flares his energy and throws out a question to the class, asking if anyone can explain why aura is utilized that way internally. Celia raises her hand, asking if it just drains out of the body, but Leo cuts in, breaking it down. Aura incinerates mana like high-octane fuel. The professor nods, confirming he is spot on, and follows up with the million-dollar question. What is the most critical factor when burning that fuel? Leo doesn't hesitate endurance. The professor notes that Leo is absolutely crushing it today, and asks if he has prepped this material beforehand. Leo denies it casually. Allen thinks to himself that it is wild for a student this young to grasp the core essence of aura so easily. Then, the instructor suggests they get physical. As he channels his magical energy, the whole class gasps because Professor Allen starts hovering, literally, walking on the breeze. He explains that this is the aura step technique. It is a foundational concept, just focusing aura into the legs. But he adds a crucial detail. The application potential is limitless. As the lesson continues, the students scramble to replicate the professor's moves. Leo is grinding on his own aura drills. Celia teases him, promising to teach him the ropes. If he calls her big sister, Leo just shrugs, saying he is fine. Suddenly, the vibe shifts. The professor locks eyes on Duran, who is charging up his magic in a super shady way. Allen smirks slightly and calls for everyone's attention, bringing up the little drama fest from earlier that morning. Chelsea looks totally lost, wondering what the tea is. Tomas whispers that he will fill her in right now. The prof summons Leo and Duran to the front. He asks Duran what has got him so heated, but the guy claims he is chill. So, the teacher tells him to take a stance. He introduces Duran Moira as the captain of the Central Region, and Leo Plav as the rookie representative, announcing a head-to-head showdown to decide who takes the title of class representative. And the kicker? They can unleash their aura with 0 restrictions. Even Duran looks a bit shook by the rules. Meanwhile, Tomas is already taking bets. The prodigy of House Moira, heir to a legendary bloodline and master of electric aura, is about to throw down against the mysterious Black Knight who stomped all the regional captains to become the rep, Leo Plav. The crowd goes wild, whispering and placing their wagers on the winner. The instructor declares that whoever crosses the finish line first takes the victory, no matter how they get there. The loser has to eat humble pie. That is what they call chivalry. Celia, keeping it real, thinks there is no way Leo wins this, but she also knows he is the type to shatter expectations every single time. Duran bursts forward with crackling electric aura, while Leo just starts jogging. Duran shouts that this is in the bag, and sure enough, he rockets to the front, boosted by his lightning speed. The gallery comments that, obviously, he is dominating. Leo is focusing energy into his legs, but right now, he is getting dusted. Nobody gets what is happening. Chelsea, though, is screaming her lungs out for Leo. By now, Duran has a massive lead, hitting the halfway mark. Tomas looks stressed out. Then, Leo scans the audience and spots something. He slams on the brakes mid-track and bolts toward the wall. Celia is totally baffled, thinking he is a complete moron. But then, Leo ignites red flames on his feet and runs vertically up the wall like it is nothing. Once he hits the high ground near the stands, he charges so much power the stone floor cracks. With a massive impulse that triggers a huge explosion behind him, he launches himself back into the race like a human missile. He blurs past Duran instantly, calling out that he is taking the lead, and crosses the finish line effortlessly. Duran is so stunned, he literally stops running. Leo just gives a smirk, looking back at the crater and explosion he left behind. The entire crowd is floored, wondering what on earth just happened. They are buzzing that he smoked Duran, the fastest freshman alive, and that Leo had barely learned Aura Step 5 minutes ago. Celia realizes that was not just Aura, that was the Phoenix. Chelsea and Tomas, hyped out of their minds, are screaming that Leo took the W, calling him a legend. Meanwhile, the professor is analyzing the play. He knew Duran's specialty was electric aura, which gives a massive speed buff. He did not expect Leo to match that pace. However, Leo, who is naturally slower, actually outsmarted him. He condensed his flaming aura into his feet, inventing a totally unique propulsion method. It was a mind-blowing application. Afterward, Leo walks over to shake Duran's hand, saying it was a solid match. He adds that if the track were any longer, he would have lost. But Duran just walks away, taking the L in silence. Without even bothering to acknowledge the greeting, the professor's mind was racing. He realized that finally, a true hero had emerged in this timeline. Chelsea slid up to Leo, eyes wide with excitement. She told him straight up, that performance? Absolutely legendary. That's exactly why she wanted to grind more training sessions with him. Tomas, being nosy, nudged Celia. Yo, why are you always hovering around Leo like that? Celia shot back like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Tomas tried to pivot, suggesting the whole squad hit the cafeteria to grab a bite, his treat. But Leo wasn't having it. He dropped a quick, sorry, can't, and ghosted them without another word. Tomas called out, asking where he was headed. Summoning class? Leo threw back over his shoulder. Tomas stood there, confused. Since when do knights bother with summoning circles? Even Celia couldn't figure out his angle. As Leo walked away, his mind was busy. Something about this whole situation didn't add up. That reward from the Fairy Queen? It made zero sense. Usually, hero rewards scale with your power level within the system. But this loot was strictly tied to summoning. For someone like him who doesn't mess with that kind of magic, he would have typically signed up for a standard magic theory class and called it a day. However, to seal a pact with a spirit, you have to visit the spirit realm. Suddenly, a presence loomed behind him. Heading to summoning class 2? A voice asked. Leo clocked her immediately. Senia, the captain of the East. She introduced herself with perfect manners. Leo gave a nod, saying it was good to meet her. Senia eyed him curiously. She knew for a fact he was in the Night Division. So, why the sudden interest in summoning? She pressed. Leo shrugged, claiming he was just curious about spiritualism. Guess I'll be seeing a lot of you then, she noted. Leo asked about her pact. In response, she flexed by summoning a shimmering water spirit. What about you? She asked. Got one yet? Leo admitted his contract wasn't sealed yet. Senia offered to lend a hand if he got stuck. Leo accepted, saying he'd definitely take her up on that. Then, he dropped a random question. How old are you? 17, Senia replied. Leo blinked. She looked even younger than Chelsea. Senia narrowed her eyes, staring right through him. You just thought something rude, didn't you? Leo quickly denied it. She let it slide and switched gears. Anyway, what you did to Duran, that was wild. Leo looked at her. You were watching? Saw the whole thing, she confirmed. It actually shook me. Then, she dropped the gauntlet. She wanted a piece of him too. Leo just smirked. Later, at the Summoning Division HQ, the vibe was intense. Heavy hitters were there, including the leader of the South. Leo looked around the small group. Is this the whole squad? Senia explained that summoning isn't exactly the trendy major on campus. Figured as much, Leo muttered. They were told the class was happening outside, under the open sky. Out of nowhere, a massive shadow swept over them. A giant beast descended from the clouds, looked straight up like a wyvern. It was a wyvern, and someone was riding it like a pro. As it swooped down toward the students, pure panic set in. The rider laughed it off, claiming her pet just took a liking to one of them. She introduced herself as Professor Marin Yura, their summoning instructor. The whole class was instantly captivated, total hard eyes. Leo's mind flashed back to an old buddy of his. That guy always had some cheesy poetic line for beautiful women. He would have absolutely lost his mind over this professor. Yura snapped him back to reality, calling the class a bunch of knuckleheads. You're here, which means you've already dabbled in summoning, right? She wasted no time. We're heading straight to the field. Let's move. She signaled Carlos, a first-year associate professor, who was struggling to hold onto a massive griffin. A whole flock of griffins surrounded the students. Yura clapped her hands. Pair up, pick a bird. You're riding them, she ordered. The students froze, looking at the sharp beaks and claws with zero confidence. Most had never even touched a monster, let alone ridden one. Yura rolled her eyes. Sounds like a pathetic excuse to me. She hopped back on her wyvern. If you're scared, drop the class. I don't need cowards here. Her beast slammed its wings, generating a hurricane-force wind and a deafening roar as she shot into the sky. Carlos yelled at everyone to follow her lead. Hesitantly, the students started climbing on. One kid was already having a nightmare trying to control his mount. Senia looked at Leo. You mind taking the reins on this one? Knock yourself out, Leo replied. Moments later, they were soaring over the massive Lake Luminia. On the ground, people gazed up in awe. Classic Luminia Academy flex. Senia exhaled, admitting she was nervous at first. They're actually way more chill than I thought, she noted. Don't get comfortable, Leo warned. First-time control is never this smooth. Right on cue, the professor blew a sharp blast on her whistle. Instantly, the griffins snapped. Their eyes went wild with rage, and the formation broke into chaos. Students were getting bucked off left and right. Leo shouted over the wind to Senia. They were only behaving because of Yura's aura, not ours. Yura's voice boomed from above. You call yourselves Luminia students? If you can't dominate a simple beast, you don't belong here. Even Sena was struggling big time. Leo had to lock her in a tight embrace to keep her on the griffin, turning her face bright red. He warned her these beasts were proud and powerful. Trying to muscle them into submission would only make things messy. Then, Leo gently grabbed Sena's hand, whispering to take it slow. Just like that, they synced with the griffin, gliding smoothly, until they zoomed right past the professor, still perched on her massive wyvern. Yura turned to Carlos, asking if Leo was actually a knight major. Carlos, frantically flipping through papers, stammered that, yeah, at least he thought so. Yura scanned Leo's file for any standout achievements, but Carlos shook his head, blank slate, nothing there. Yura smirked, realizing this was raw talent. Looks like they had a hidden gem buried in this class. Later, at Summoning Island, the Summoner boot camp, the squad landed completely drained, except for Leo, who looked fresh as a daisy. While everyone else was gasping for air, he started scouting the area, and spotted a tree with some massive fruit. He watched a feather drift down onto it. Without missing a beat, Leo snatched the fruit and tossed it to the griffin, who wolfed it down. That's when Yura dropped the bomb. Pop quiz, practical exam time. The students freaked out. A practical exam on day one? Some whined that they were still in orientation mode, but the professor shut them down, explaining that unlike the knights or mages, the path of a summoner was a way steeper climb. She asked if anyone knew why. She broke it down. A summoner needs more than just mana control. To contract a spirit, you need special affinity, and to command those beasts, you need the grit to tame them. That's exactly why. The number of top-tier summoner heroes is way lower than other classes. But make no mistake, among all heroes, a summoner has the highest shot at legendary status. Yura stared them down. That's why you're all here, right? Just then, a student piped up, asking what the exam entailed. It was Elisa Jurgen, the famous prodigy from the Jurgen clan. Yura explained that this island lived up to its name. It was crawling with summons. And since summons are basically a summoner's weapon, they had to prove they could handle them. The test was dead simple. Tame a creature right here, right now, and seal the contract. That's it. The students, awestruck by the sheer scale of the place, scrambled to find creatures. But Leo hung back on purpose. Elisa slid over to him, mentioning the gossip about him taking down Duran was spreading like wildfire. She asked what his deal was, and the other squad captains started side-eyeing him too. But Leo just muttered he'd do his best and walked off, leaving Elisa looking pretty salty. Yura watched the whole scene, betting those four would be the year's MVPs. She could feel the electricity in the air. Something big was brewing. As the students scoured the forest for summons, a bunch of them did a double take when they saw Leo. He was the freshman rep, so why was he here? Whispers started floating around that he probably wasn't cut out for this, and if he flunked this test, he'd go crawling back to the night class with his tail between his legs. But the second Leo was totally alone. He whipped out that feather he snagged earlier. Channeling the Phoenix's power, he torched it just like he planned. But his train of thought got derailed by something wild. Meanwhile, somewhere else, a couple of folks were having a chill tea time. It was Raina Plov, Leo's mom. Willie asked why she looked so stressed. Back in the forest, Leo was getting swallowed by the forest's heat. Not literally on fire, but close enough. Raina muttered that this was exactly what she feared. Leo sensed this wasn't normal heat. This blaze was built different. It had to be one of the three great summoning spirits, a phoenix. Then, the flames started talking. They asked Leo if he had Serdinger blood running through his veins. The voice admitted it expected someone more impressive, but it could smell Raina on him. Leo, totally shook, asked if it knew his mom. The flames crackled back. It's her son. It's her son. So he was right. Finally, the fire took shape, revealing a majestic phoenix. The creature introduced itself as Fiorina, one of the big three. Leo, still reeling, introduced himself as Leo Plov, and asked how she knew his mother. Fiorina explained that Raina saved her summoner, Ellen Nunda. Leo's jaw dropped. Hero Ellen? Fiorina told the story. Ellen was clearing a dungeon, but her whole squad got wiped out, and she was on death's door too. That's when Raina swooped in to save her, sacrificing her Serdinger fire aura in the process. That's the only reason she never became a legendary hero. She gave up her power for a friend. Leo whispered that his mom always said she didn't regret a single thing about that day. The beast grunted, acknowledging that Raina was exactly that kind of knight. Then Leo hit her with the big question. What was a creature like her doing in Luminia? Fiorina wasn't spilling the tea on that one. Instead, she flipped the script. Why are you here? Aren't you supposed to be swinging swords? Leo shrugged. I'm double majoring, taking summoning class too. That actually threw the creature off. She started scanning Leo's physique, analyzing his energy flow. That destiny living inside you. Fascinating, she mused. Then she announced that the time had finally come. To square the debt she owed his mother. Reach out, she commanded. Take this flame. He grasped the living ember. Instantaneously, a glowing egg materialized in his palm. That, Farina whispered, is my daughter. She hoped that one day, when Leo became a top-tier summoner, he'd forge a pact with her. But Leo cut straight to the chase. Can I make the contract right now? Farina looked at him like he was crazy. Way too soon, kid. That kind of power will kill you. Ignoring the warning, Leo began channeling his energy, blazing aura erupting around him. Seeing his grit, Farina saw a flash of Reyna in his eyes. Good luck, she murmured. Meanwhile, deep in his mind palace, Leo was drifting through an endless void. Just a single, tiny ember flickering in the dark. He grabbed it, and boom, it detonated, flames devouring his entire being. The phoenix's heat wasn't just hot, it was absolute incineration. Pure, unadulterated power. He realized the price of this power, enduring the agony of burning alive, every single day. But then it clicked. A phoenix isn't just fire, it's eternal rebirth from the ashes. Embracing the torture, he merged his soul with hers. He wrestled the inferno into submission. Crack. The egg in the real world began to fracture. The contract was initiating. The shell could barely contain the raw energy surging from within. Farina held her breath. Did he actually pull it off? Leo's eyes snapped open. You bet. Farina grinned with genuine respect. You're a legit genius, kid. You're gonna be the G-O-A-T of summoners. She congratulated him on the bond. The creature's name was Flora, a fellow phoenix and one of the three great spirits. Then, Farina shifted into her human form. I'm trusting you with my baby girl, she said. Leo looked down, dumbfounded. He thought Flora looked way more like a barnyard chick than a legendary firebird. She gave him a cute look. Yep, he deadpanned. Definitely a chicken. Back in reality, the other students were rolling in with the beasts they'd managed to tame. The professor checked in with Carlos. What's the clock look like? 5 minutes until pencils down, Carlos replied. 4 students still MIA. Suddenly, a massive beast crashed onto the scene. A bear with glowing eyes. Looked ferocious, but it was completely chill. Totally under control, with Asen riding on top. The professor gasped. He tamed a water bear cub? That's insane. Another kid swooped in from the sky. It was Alden, hitching a ride on a dark crow. Impressive work, the professor nodded. Alden shrugged, admitting, haven't locked in the contract yet, though, just tamed him. Next up was Elisa, strolling in with a massive white serpent. The professor clocked it immediately, a gorgon snake. I just tamed it because it was cute, Elisa giggled. Plus, my family didn't have one yet, Carlos shouted. Time's up. Just as the buzzer beat, the final student emerged. It was Leo, sporting a tiny yellow chick on his head. The whole class erupted into laughter. Bro got a chicken nugget. Classic knight behavior. Stick to swords, loser. But the professor froze, sensing an energy that left her absolutely floored. Did this lunatic actually bond with a phoenix? Later, back at the gym, Leo knocked on the office door. Meeting time with Professor Yura. She was wearing something a little breezier than usual. Take a seat, Leo. She leaned in. First time I've ever laid eyes on a baby phoenix. Honestly, didn't even know they existed on Summoning Island. And for a first-year student to pull off a contract with one, that's historically unheard of. Leo blinked, confused. What are you doing? She stepped closer, invading his personal space. I want to know who you really are. Leo's heart skipped a beat. Shoot, did they figure out that I'm a reincarnation? But the professor just lunged at him, pulling him into a suffocating hug face right in her chest. You're a genius, she squealed. A total summoning prodigy. I was so hyped. When I realized you snagged a phoenix, she pulled back. But listen, we gotta keep this on the down low for now. If this leaks, things are gonna get messy. She paused. Also, I need you to promise me one thing for when the exploration period ends. The system flagged summoning as his main class, practically screaming that he had the potential to become the G-O-A-T of summoners. Cut to the next morning at the gym, where we find Chloe, doing the zombie walk down the hallway. Thomas roasts her, saying her jaw is gonna unhinge if she keeps yawning like that. She claims she pulled an all-nighter studying grimoires. Suddenly, Leo slides up and asks if she's the famous Chloe Muller. He hands back her student ID. She dropped it during that crash landing the other day. She is super grateful to the first-year rep. But then she does a double take. Wait, why is a knight sitting in a magic theory class? Leo shrugs it off, explaining it's exploration week. and he's just checking the vibes. Thomas plops down next to him, whispering that the girl next door is basically the Gandalf of their division, Chloe Mueller herself. Chloe shoots daggers with her eyes. Thomas jokes, "Is it chilly in here, or is it just you?" He tries to make a break for it, but bam! A massive, jagged ice spike slams down, blocking his escape route. Chloe stares him down and points to the front row. "Sit, now." She's keeping him on a short leash. Meanwhile, Leo is left flying solo, until a familiar voice pipes up. It's Chelsea and her brother Abad, popping up right behind him to say, "Hey." Leo's like, "Oh, right. The whole squad is here." Suddenly, the professor strides into the room, ready to rock their world. He introduces himself as Len Horse and claims it'll be a pleasure to teach the freshmen. Famous last words. This guy doesn't waste a second. Before the intro is even over, his fingers are already weaving complex spells, and papers fly onto everyone's desks. Surprise pop quiz on magic theory. You can practically smell the panic in the room. Professor Len drops the bomb. "Fail this, and don't bother coming back to my class. This is Lumenia Academy. If you can't hack it at this level, pack your bags." He points to his assistant, Anna, and says to hand the tests to her when done. Meanwhile, Leo is literally shaking in his boots. He's looking at these modern magic formulas like they're alien hieroglyphics. Why is this math so insane? Everyone starts scribbling furiously while the clock ticks down like a time bomb. As the deadline looms, despair sets in. Leo realizes he's cooked. He hasn't solved a single thing. He figures he needs to hit the library before showing his face here again. He walks out, determined to self-study. The timer buzzes, and the professor snaps his fingers. Whoosh! Every test flies back to his hand. Then, he summons some absolutely massive energy. Right above the classroom, pure starlight power. Len explains this is his signature magic, something he built from scratch. He challenges them. He expects every student in this room to be a creator, not just a user. That's the trick. 49 questions were boring memorization, but the last one? That single question was worth 51 points. It tested the true essence of magic. He's hoping someone nailed it. Chelsea admits she totally blanked on that one. She wonders if Leo bailed because he's just not cut out for this wizard life. Suddenly, Anna leans in and whispers something shocking to Professor Len. Someone actually cracked the code. Len bursts out laughing, totally in disbelief. Who is it? Who's the genius? The first person in history to get a perfect score. Stand up and take a bow. The guy is absolutely buzzing with excitement. He calls it terrifying yet brilliant, but Anna corrects him. "Sir, they didn't get a perfect score on everything. This student left the whole test blank, except for the last question. And that student? Leo." Len calls his name, but crickets. Leo's ghosted. Chelsea raises her hand. He left ages ago." Len is floored. The guy walked out, yet he's the only one who scored 51 points. He topped the class. Cut to the cafeteria later that day. Celia is absolutely losing it, roasting Leo to his face. She can't believe he walked out of class after answering one question. First, he summons a baby chick. Now he bombs a test. She mocks him for having zero magic game. She tells him to stick to swinging swords like a good little knight. Leo sighs. "You want to spar or just make fun of me?" Celia grins. But suddenly, a dark shadow looms over Leo. It's Professor Len, and he looks livid. "Are you the knight who thinks my class is a joke?" He demands to know why Leo walked out after one answer. "Was my exam too boring for a genius like you?" But Leo looks totally confused. He jumps up, hands raised. "Wait, total misunderstanding. I thought I failed. The rest of that test was impossible. The questions were brutal, and he only managed to nail the very last one." He dropped the lore that he'd been studying. Magic from ancient grimoires collecting dust in his family's library. That explained why he was totally clueless about modern magic. Professor Len, absolutely buzzing with energy, yanked him off the floor. While Leo stood there confused, Len's brain was misfiring with a brilliant idea, and he demanded Leo tag along immediately. He grabbed the kid by the collar and literally dragged him out of the cafeteria, grinning like a maniac. Anna bolted after them. Celia was like, "What is the magic theory prof doing here?" While Anna screamed, asking if anyone knew where the professor vanished to. Celia pointed out he'd just abducted Leo, so Anna spun around to give chase. What is that psycho plotting? Cut to, back inside the magic classroom. The prof wiped the board, scribbled some fresh formulas, slammed his hand against the slate, and barked at Leo, "Solve it." Len needed to know, was Leo's answer a lucky shot, or did he actually grasp the core essence of the spell? Time to expose the truth. Was this kid a genius or a fluke? But Leo just shrugged, claiming he'd already cracked it. The professor whipped around to look at the board, jaw on the floor. Leo had mentally speedrun every single question. Leo was like, "Yeah, pretty much," the professor whispered, trembling with hype. "I finally found him." Meanwhile, Professor Albie was chilling in the hallway. Len sprinted over to him, radiating pure joy. Albie spotted him coming and thought, ugh, here comes trouble. He instantly pivoted to bail, but Len tackled his leg, clinging on for dear life, thanking him profusely for the recommendation. Albie stood there, confused, noting he'd never seen Len act this unhinged. Bro, why are you behaving like this? Len fired back that he struck gold. He found a genius. A legitimate, total magic genius. Leo, the student Albie vouched for. Albie paused, deep in thought. A mage isn't usually a knight, but Len insisted the kid had to become a wizard, no matter the cost. Suddenly, Anna came charging onto the scene. Seeing Len floating away as Albie shook him off, she managed to catch him right before he face-planted. Len said thanks, but Anna was furious, scolding him to get back to class. She swore she'd end this lunatic one day. Nearby, Albie saw Leo approaching, shot him a subtle smirk, and walked off. Leo watched them go, thinking, yep, mages haven't changed a bit, still total nutjobs. Fast forward 1 week. The temporary exploration classes were wrapping up, and Leo was nose-deep in his little book. He closed it to reveal the title, Kyle, Hero or Fraud. He was chilling on the roof at the time, watching the mayhem unfold below. People were sprinting toward the principal's office, totally clueless about what was happening. Inside, the big three were gathered. Professor Allen, Professor Len, and Professor Yura. Allen was losing it, shouting that this was unacceptable. Leo's file showed he was enrolled in every major track, the knight class, the mage class, and the summoner class. While Yura and Len started bickering, Allen doubled down. Principal, he's a swordsman. Honestly, send the kid to military school. The principal just laughed, saying Leo reminded him of a storybook legend. When asked who, he dropped the name, the fifth great hero, the hero of beginning, Kyle. The only legend in human history to master all 3 major classes. Later, at the training center, Celia and Chelsea were sweating buckets, grinding through a workout. Thomas watched, puzzled why they were going so hard. By the weekend, Leo explained Chelsea asked to train with him. Thomas, still lost, asked, then why just running? Where's your gear? Leo shot back that some things matter more than weapons. Celia finished his sentence, our stamina. Chelsea added that endurance is the #1 stat for a battle mage, which is why they were suffering through this cardio. As Thomas stepped back, Chelsea sat next to Leo while he handed her water. She mentioned the training was actually solid, and she wanted to keep running with him. Hearing that, Celia did a literal spit take. Leo said he planned on it anyway, so it was cool, but Celia snapped that she wouldn't run with him. Thomas started wondering why those two were so tight. He figured they were dating. Celia, totally fed up, yelled, for the love of God, he is my cousin, my dad's sister's kid. Chelsea and Thomas both gasped. Wait, you are asserting her? Celia muttered, technically no, it is complicated, and refused to elaborate further. Leo stood up, eyes locked on the prize. All right, let's get this bread. Chelsea was practically vibrating with excitement. Thomas tried to dip, wanting to explore Lumina solo. He wished them luck, but Chelsea latched onto him like a backpack, begging to tag along. Thomas muttered, why do I attract all the weirdos? Cut to class assignment day. Leo walked into room 5, and surprised Thomas was already camping out there. Leo asked if he predicted this. Thomas smirked, claiming there's nothing in the verse he doesn't know. He asked about Chelsea, and sure enough, there she was, looking absolutely cooked after training. Thomas couldn't help but wonder what kind of Hell Week nightmare they just survived. Leo shrugged it off as basics. Suddenly, some random NPCs walked by, throwing shade at Class 5. They called it the Class of Despair. One student sneered, those losers will wash out in the first semester. Another was already offering thoughts and prayers. A third guy walked up, asking if they felt bad for them. Then he pointed out 2 people standing in front, who were even more pathetic. When the students turned around, they froze. A massive, intimidating figure loomed over them, asking if they had a problem with his opinion. It was Harry Edman, the head teacher of Class 5. He didn't waste breath on intros. He just barked, chair, now. Scrambling, the students morphed a chair into existence. Harry ignored the seat and perched on the backrest like a total weirdo, facing the students. Nice to meet you, you bags of trash. He didn't sugarcoat it. This class was the dumping ground for everyone who flopped and scored the lowest stats among the new recruits. He bet they'd heard the rumors. People called him the Wailing Wall. He scanned the room. Anyone know how I earned that title? Thomas piped up. Is it because you help raise our grades? Harry grinned. Sure, Thomas. Textbook answer from a last-place loser. Then he pivoted. Who knows the core duty of a Lumania Academy student, especially the bottom feeders? Chelsea raised her hand. To capture the hero's world through practical missions, sir. Harry nodded. Correct. But looking at your faces, you look like NPCs who'd get wiped the second you step foot in that world. It's better to get kicked out now than end up in a coffin. That's why I took over Class 5. and that's why I'm the Wailing Wall. I make you cry so you don't die. Harry glanced at Leo, thinking this kid might actually survive. He shouted, "Gear up. Everyone to the training field. Combat studies start now." While the students roasted under the blazing sun in their gear, Harry was living his best life under a massive parasol. Lounging in a beach chair, sipping coconut water, he lectured, "We need to fix that soft mindset you carried in before Luminia." Harry asked the million-dollar question, "Who's going to save you out there in the real world, where life is cheap?" A student named Neela Carbon raised her hand. "My teammates, sir. The friend standing right next to me." The professor shut that down instantly. "Wrong. The only thing saving your neck is your own skill. Only when you level up and can hold your own in a crisis do you earn the right to think about helping others." Another student challenged him about trust. Professor Harry smirked. "Okay, bet. Let's see what you got, Magic Knight. Cast a fireball." Eliana. Eliana Leiden, a dual-class hybrid, stepped up. She conjured a fireball. Harry looked unimpressed. "That's it? You couldn't even roast a marshmallow with that, let alone kill an ant." Embarrassed, she poured in more mana, spawning 2 larger fireballs. She looked at the professor for validation. Harry slow-clapped. "Wow, quantity and size. Groundbreaking." Then, Harry formed a wind sphere. "Tell you what, why don't you hit this target?" But instead of a stagnant target, he summoned a mischievous fairy that zipped straight for Eliana, tickling her nose. She turned bright red with rage. She swiped at it, but whiffed completely. The fairy literally danced on her face. Harry taunted, "What's the point of a nuke if you can't hit the broadside of a barn?" He wanted them to feel the gap, to realize just how far behind the Luminia standard they really were. They needed to grind harder than ever. Until that sinks in, nobody leaves. Harry finished with a roar. "Dedicate your hearts, descendants of Luminia." Leo realized Harry's words were harsh, but they were facts. The tutorial was over. The real class started now. Harry kept his eyes on Leo. The kid gave him serious vibes of that legendary hero, Kyle. While the other students were flailing around trying to catch the fairy, Leo was charging up his flames. He launched himself like a heat-seeking missile straight at the target. Harry's eyes widened. This kid might be the chosen one to master all 3 classes. Chelsea gasped. "How is he that fast?" Thomas shook his head, admitting even he couldn't track that movement. Leo was moving at god-tier speed. Using his flame steps, he vaulted into the air, closing the distance instantly. Just as he was about to snatch the fairy, he ignited his fire steps and rocketed skyward, closing in on the fairy with explosive speed. Just as he was literally inches away from snatching her, she managed to juke him, but Leo just smirked, charging up a skill. He was about to snag her when Duran flashed in and snatched her first. Duran stared down the protagonist until slow, clapping broke the tension. A man stepped into view. It was Seaton, the head honcho of Class 1. He bragged that his students never missed a beat. Harry fired back. "Oh, really? You want to trade places and teach my class?" He shot a look at Seaton, who clearly wasn't vibing with that idea. Thomas whispered that this was a deep rivalry between the Academy's 2 pillars. Leo asked what pillars meant, and Thomas explained they'd been running Numania for over 20 years. Word on the street was that Lene and Yura used to be apprentices under these 2 legends. Neela asked how Thomas knew all the tea, and he winked. "I'm just plugged in, you know?" Seaton told Harry he had no clue what the guy was plotting by taking over the loser class, but he'd find out soon enough. Then he whipped out a ball, challenging Class 5 to a showdown against Class 1. Harry asked, "Ball sports? You want a match of Bastera?" He stood up, adding, "What else can we expect from the genius Seaton? Nothing beats real-world experience." Seaton guaranteed a dub for his squad. Harry accepted the challenge anyway. He leaned back like it was no big deal, saying he could keep teaching Class 5 regardless of the drama. Seaton fumed, wondering how he let that guy finesse him out of the training hall. Then he ordered his students to clear out. Harry turned to his crew, announcing he was giving them a shot to put their skills to the test. A Bastera match. Class 1 versus Class 5. Harry stood up and dropped the real bomb. "If you lose, you're expelled." Naturally, the whole class froze, looking at him like he was crazy, asking if he was serious. Harry shrugged, telling them if they didn't want to get kicked out, they had to shatter their limits. Besides, no need to stress, since the first-year rep was on their squad, right? Harry told Leo to draft his team for the Bastera match. Leo realized this was clearly a test for him, but the teacher wasn't doing it out of spite. It was because some students had lost the will to grind in the academy. Harry definitely wanted him to pick the ones drifting off path, using this game to reignite their spirit and hunger to keep going. It was a strategy to boost Class 5's morale. With the stakes set, the face-off began, between Class 1 and Class 5. Leo noticed Chelsea looked shaky and asked why she was panicking. Chelsea confessed she'd probably never even heard of Bastera before. It was a combat sport, a massive tradition in Numenia. Thomas explained it wasn't just some casual ball game, but something straight up dangerous. Someone asked why Chelsea was so terrified. Celia smirked, insinuating she was scared because she already knew she'd take the L. Chelsea snapped back, yelling that Celia was the one who'd lose, throwing curses her way. Leo grabbed Chelsea and Thomas to calm the vibes. He promised them their class wasn't going to lose. Celia bragged he'd see the results of her training, but the guy standing next to her looked way more intimidating. Seaton announced everyone could head to the arena. Leo asked, "Who's riding with me?" Eliana and Chelsea stepped up first, looking surprisingly hyped. Other students joined the lineup, including Neela. Someone pointed out to Thomas that the last spot was for him, but he was trying to hide. Ignoring that, Leo announced Class 5 was locked and loaded. Seaton grinned, "Excellent," and tossed the ball into the air to kick things off. All eyes were glued to the scene. Class 1 looked ready to kill. The game started. Leo and Duran were the first to launch forward. Duran was faster, snatching the ball and diving down instantly. Leo sprinted to Neela, shouting for the rules. She said it was simple. Infuse your aura into the ball and smash it into the hoop hands or feet. Doesn't matter. First team to score 2 points wins. The blonde guy, Tade Marcoa, finished explaining. Duran prepped his throw. Thomas was in the goal. Yeah, he was actually standing there. Duran launched the ball with full power straight at Leo, who had to dodge or face a fatality. The ball blasted through the hoop, point for Class 1. The crowd went wild for Duran. Class 5 looked defeated, and Tade muttered that Harry must really want them expelled. Leo asked how they could get possession back. Tide explained there were 3 ways: when the ball goes out of bounds on the opponent's turn, when someone catches it, or when, suddenly, a scream cut him off. Boom, they got caught completely lacking. Eliana took that ball straight to the chest, total blindside. It was Celia who launched it, obviously. She's throwing shade, yelling at them to quit yapping and lock in on the game. Tade breaks down the rules. No touching, fam. You can't attack the players directly. So Eliana is down for the count because of the ball impact, not Celia's magic. The only weapon allowed in this arena is the ball itself. Leo nods. Cool, thanks for the info. Then his vibe shifts. My turn. With Eliana K. Oh, the stakes just skyrocketed. Class 5 is down a player. Disaster scenario. Seaton knows the meta in Batera favors highly destructive fire users. And speaking of heat, Serdinger's flames are top-tier dangerous. Pure destruction. Seaton shakes his head. Harry really accepted this match knowing a monster like Celia was on the roster? It looks like a slaughter for Class 5. Meanwhile, Harry is literally napping. Seaton mutters, "Just once. Could you act like a civilized human being?" Harry cracks an eye open. "Yo, you remember my first student? That brat from the Sutherland house? How could I forget?" Seaton scoffs. The Queen of Batera herself. Harry grins, way too smug. Well, her son is in Class 5. Seaton freezes, he totally missed that plot twist. Back in the arena, Class 5 is crashing hard. Morale is 0. They're already picturing those expulsion slips. They think it's game over, simple as that. But then whoosh, the atmosphere changes. Celia snaps her head around. He finally woke up. It's Leo. He's channeling that Phoenix energy, winding up to launch the ball like a 50 caliber sniper round. He fires. It's a laser straight for the hoop, but right before it scores, bam, a massive ice wall erupts to block it. Enter Chloe. She's standing there looking icy, declaring, "You're not passing. As long as I'm breathing, this lane is closed." Suddenly, Leo teleports into her personal space. "Did you mean possible?" He leaps up, defies gravity, and spikes the ball with god-tier force. Smash. It blasts right through the ice wall, shattering it into a million diamonds. Seddon's jaw drops. That combat instinct is insane. Harry just sits there, smirking like a proud dad. The crowd goes wild. Class 5 erupts, screaming Leo's name, hype levels through the roof. Seddon cracks a rare smile. All right, he thinks. Now the real game begins. Here's the deal. Scoring works like volleyball. You gotta pull a 2-point lead to take the W. The pace is frantic. 2-1, 4-5, 7-6, 9-10. Both squads are desperate to break the deadlock. Duran goes for the kill shot, but Thomas, absolute legend, catches it. He's engulfed in flames, electrocuted, basically fried, but he holds onto the ball before collapsing. He gets subbed out, but he did his job. The ball is in Leo's hands. This is it. Match point. The next move decides everything. It's a 1 versus 3 nightmare. Leo against Duran, Celia, and Chloe. The spectators are whispering, "He's cooked. Major disadvantage." Chloe narrows her eyes. "I might have flopped the written exam," she hisses, "but I'm not losing on the battlefield." She casts a spell boom. Multiple ice clones appear. Leo pauses, crouches low, and enters the zone. Celia is taunting him, "Come get some." But Leo is tapping into something else, pure fairy energy. And then he vanishes, literally gone. Nobody tracked that speed. He's moving like a phantom. He breezes past Celia before she even blinks, deep in enemy territory. Chloe realizes too late, Leo has illusions of his own. Which one is real? She can't tell. The magic he's flexing isn't normal school-grade stuff. Chloe freezes up, totally overwhelmed. She collapses, whispering in shock. That's star magic? How is a human slinging elven spells? Doesn't matter, Leo dunks it. Game over. Class 5 takes the crown. They're screaming his name. Tears are flowing. Kids are sobbing. We're not getting expelled. Satan looks at Harry. What kind of monster did you create? Harry shrugs. Just gave him a little motivation. Meanwhile, Class 1 is crushed. Total humiliation. Morale in the gutter. Satan sighs and walks over to the losers. You guys upset? Salty about the L? Doesn't matter, he says firmly. Game's over. Leave the salt on the court. Go shake hands. You guys played as a unit for Class 1, and that's facts. The loss doesn't change that. One defeat doesn't erase your teamwork. Stand up. Be proud of the grind. Solid pep talk. Until Harry ruins the moment. Losers. Losers. Failures. Seaton ignores the troll and thinks, both teams actually killed it today. Class 1 had the raw talent and skills. No cap. But Class 5? They refused to quit. Pure grit. They shattered their limits and clutched the win. Hopefully, now these two classes can finally vibe together in harmony. Handshakes were exchanged as the adrenaline faded. Celia was hyping up Chelsea, telling her she absolutely crushed it, lasting way longer in the ring than anyone predicted. Chelsea was literally speechless, still processing how hard she had fought. Meanwhile, Thomas showed some real sportsmanship, gripping Duran's hand firmly. But Duran? He was definitely salty about the loss. Poor Chloe was a total wreck, sobbing in humiliation, until Leo walked over and reached out a hand. He told her straight up that her performance was awesome. With a little more XP, she was going to evolve into a terrifyingly powerful mage. Chloe snapped back, asking if he was trolling her. Leo, being the dense protagonist he is, looked genuinely confused by her reaction. He just kept his hand out, smiling like a golden retriever. Chloe vowed she'd destroy him one day, but for now, she swallowed her pride and shook on it. Flash forward 1 month. Thomas was chilling at the lunch table with Chelsea and Leo when he popped the question, what clubs were they rushing? Leo dropped a bombshell. He wasn't joining a club, he was starting one. The table went quiet, but Chelsea immediately blurted out that she was in. Thomas raised an eyebrow, asking what the vibe was. Leo explained his master plan, founding the Heroic Research Society. He wanted to deep dive into the lore of the lost hero, the OG legend, Kyle. The others were skeptical, mumbling that Kyle wasn't just forgotten. He was basically a fictional character. Thomas pointed out that nobody was going to join a fan club for a myth. Chelsea suddenly did the math. Wait, a club with no members meant just her and Leo. Alone? Her brain short-circuited, and she started chanting, I'm joining, like a broken record. Suddenly, the cafeteria erupted into chaos. A hush fell over the room. Someone major had just returned to campus. The squad at the table stood up to see what the hype was about. It was the fifth-year seniors, finally back from a high-stakes mission. They had been out clearing a dungeon. See, fragments of the hero's record were glitching out globally, becoming unstable and spawning dangerous dungeons. It was up to Luminia's elite students to act as the cleanup crew. These guys disappeared for 2 weeks, sometimes a month, just to handle these threats. It was the ultimate test. Leo realized his mom used to do this exact grind. Chelsea whispered that we were looking at the absolute best of Luminia. Thomas started rattling off names since he knew the roster. The tank leading the pack? That was Liamua. Behind him was John Toroa, and the mysterious figure rocking the hood was known as Ultra. But Thomas paused. He didn't recognize the last person trailing the group. The students pushed forward, dying to see the mystery guest. Out of nowhere, someone yanked Leo. The crowd started whispering furiously, it's him, the student council president. Thomas spun around to check on his friend. Yo, where'd Leo go? He wondered. Meanwhile, Leo was wondering why Celia was kidnapping him at Mach speed. She told him to quit asking questions. There was a place they needed to be at. Like, yesterday, they were heading to Luminia City to meet the student council president. Leo asked why the big boss wanted a freshman, but Celia just said he didn't care about school politics. Leo would see for himself. Cut to a traditional Asian restaurant. Celia admitted she didn't expect this choice of venue, though she lit up the second she saw who was walking over. It was her big brother. Enter Richard Dinger, the fifth-year legend and absolute ruler of the student council at Luminia Academy. He flashed a smile, saying it was a pleasure to finally meet Leo, the kid crazy enough to try taking every single class at once. They sat down to eat. Richard asked if the food was hitting the spot. Leo gave a thumbs up, while Celia looked at her plate like it was alien technology. She'd never tried this style before, but one bite later, she admitted it was fire. Then Richard pivoted the conversation. You're my aunt's son, right? Leo froze, asking if they knew his mother. Richard nodded, saying he saw her around constantly back when he was younger. He dropped the lore that Leo's mom was super famous. Leo blinked, totally stunned. My mom? Famous? Richard confirmed it. She wasn't just a student. She smashed records and pulled off legendary stunts that people at the academy still gossip about today. Like the time everyone thought the cafeteria food was trash. So she organized a student rebellion and stormed the director's office. Celia gasped. My aunt led a riot? Richard nodded solemnly. That woman was an absolute menace. They kept chatting until the plates were clean. Leo analyzed Richard's aura, thinking this guy was definitely the strongest in Luminia. It was only a matter of time before he became a full-blown hero. Richard offered dessert but insisted on handling the check himself, telling the juniors to head out first. However, as he walked through the door, Richard felt a strange vibration in his pocket. An object was glowing with a blinding, intense light. Meanwhile, back in Class 5, Professor Harry had his feet up, and Eliana had a question. Harry scoffed. Fine, let's hear your pathetic little question, Eliana. Ella finally piped up, asking the million-dollar question. Yo, how come every other class has a rep but us? Tade backed her up immediately, nodding in agreement. Harry looked genuinely shook, muttering, Class rep? Whoops, totally slipped my mind. Then he just shrugged. Cool, Leo's it. Eliana wasn't having it. Huh? Don't we get a vote? Tade screamed about democracy, but Harry just pointed at a massive mountain of forms stacked on the desk. To be the rep, you gotta handle all this administrative nightmare, paperwork and organizing. You want that smoke? He asked. Eliana sat her butt down instantly, radio silent. Right on cue, the PA system crackled to life. Announcement, joint heroic studies session starting in a few minutes. All first years report to the auditorium immediately. Leo looked at the group, checking if they were rolling out too. Harry smirked. Look at you, asking questions like a true leader. Time to move. The corridors were absolutely packed. On the way, Thomas and Leo spotted Chloe, and the girl looked like a walking zombie. Chloe asked Thomas if he was holding any fatigue recovery potions. He nodded, agreeing to sell her some stash, and she immediately bought 2 off him. Thomas apologized, saying that was literally all he had on him. Leo tried to chill her out, saying the semester just started and she shouldn't burn out. But Chloe downed those potions like shots and stormed off, insisting she was fine. Thomas watched her go, impressed. No wonder she's the MVP of magic theory, he thought. Chelsea rolled her eyes. She's spiraling because she has no choice. Think about it. The second you catch up with your practical magic, Leo, she's cooked. She'll be dusted. Thomas shrugged. So, what's wrong with snagging second place? Chelsea snapped. You idiot. She's a tower mage. I'm a battle mage, so I don't care about the books. But for them, magic research and studying the core of mana is their entire existence. Their pride is on the line. She glared at Thomas, asking if he was even a real mage, and he grinned. Sure, I cast spells to pay the bills, but my pride? That's in my merchandise, which triggered her. Drop dead, kid, she screamed so loud even Chloe looked back. Meanwhile, in the principal's office, something weird was going down. The damaged page from the hero record was pulsating, and Reese was the one who turned it in. That shiny object he had earlier? It was a fragment of a corrupted hero record page. Reese insisted the thing was too decayed to react, yet he saw it glow with his own eyes. Intense reaction. The principal asked if it flared up again. After that moment, Reese said no. The principal started analyzing the tiny shard, declaring he needed to investigate exactly what was happening here. He praised Reese for the good work and dismissed him, telling him to get some rest. Then he summoned his assistant, Elena. Take this fragment to the auditorium. The first years are all there. Class was about to start. As Elena left, the principal's mind raced. If that fragment reacted, it's because it made contact with the specific hero it belongs to. Back at the assembly, Professor Ariana Niere, instructor of heroic studies, was trying to wrangle the crowd. The kids were ignoring her, yapping away. So, Ariana channeled her mana and blasted a soundwave warning to shut them up instantly. They called her Ariana the Rocker for a reason. Realizing she went too hard, she switched to a smile. Thanks for coming. Even though most were silent, some students whispered, Why are all the teachers at this academy so terrifying? Leo realized she was a spiritualist, a super rare breed from his past life. Then, Ariana kicked off the heroic studies lecture. She held up a leaf that looked sharp as a dagger, or a short sword. She broke it down. When the hero records first appeared, the heroes started forming clans. To unlock a hero world, you need a catalyst, an object, deeply connected to the hero's soul. That way, their blood descendants have an easier time opening the gate. That's why Academy Luminia guards these records, and the families stay close to us. They're betting that connection is the key to their ancestors' ultimate treasure. Leo was actually absorbed in the lore. Thomas, naturally, was asleep. The professor. Ariana scanned the room. Do you guys get why these studies are a big deal now? Just then, Elena slipped into the auditorium. Ariana doubled down, emphasizing that this knowledge was crucial because it's the blueprint to solving each hero world and, obviously, mastering them. By senior year, you'll get to choose which reality you want to enter. This was the Heroic Academy, the ultimate proving ground where students aim to scrub the pages of history clean and carve out their own legacy. Right then, Ariana clocked Elena, carrying a shard of the heroic record. She announced to the class that the fifth-year squad had just recovered this artifact. She projected the image onto the massive auditorium screen. As she slowly cracked it open, a pulse of magical energy washed over the crowd, leaving everyone totally mesmerized. But then, snap, she slammed it shut, teasing that the good stuff would have to wait for later. Shifting gears, she hit the students with the big question. What's your end game as a hero? Celia didn't hesitate. She wanted to become a knight. But not just any knight, one powerful enough to eclipse every single generation of her bloodline. Ariana gave her a nod of approval. Chloe stepped up next, declaring she wanted to pen a grimoire, filled exclusively with her own original spells. 0 copycats allowed. The dreams kept rolling in. Tomas, bless his heart, said he just wanted to use his powers to support the heavy hitters on the front lines. Ariana smiled warmly at that. Support heroes are the backbone of any victory, she validated. Major respect. Then the vibe shifted. Leo stood up, eyes cold, and dropped a bombshell. His goal was the total annihilation of Erebos. The room went dead silent. Students gasped, but the professors, they looked like they'd seen a ghost. Pure shock. Ariana quickly masked her surprise, forcing a smile. That's a bold target, she managed, pushing forward while whispers broke out that the kid was dreaming way too big. Seaton nudged Harry. You buyin' this? Harry didn't laugh. Leo's not the type to talk, just to hear his own voice, he replied grimly. Think about it. It's been millennia since Erebos was chopped up and scattered, yet the guy keeps respawning like a glitch that won't die. The apocalypse just hits reset, if even a single piece of him manages to slip away. That's why he's serious. That kid doesn't want to beat Erebos. He wants to permanently delete him from existence. Back at the podium, Ariana wrestled control of the room and announced it was time to analyze that lost fragment of the heroic record.